Hello everyone, John A.G. here. Welcome back to my channel, Aurex. If you haven't yet, subscribe to my channel. In this channel, you will find the real information, the real market updates that everyone else simply cannot tell you. So please subscribe to this channel, and I love all of my subscribers for your incredible, unwavering support. And please, I am asking you to watch this video till the very end, because YouTube will not push my videos to more people. The algorithms that govern this platform do not favor the truth. They prefer you distracted. They prefer you endlessly scrolling through trivial entertainment, keeping you docile while the greatest financial heist in human history is executed right under your nose. Today is May 6, 2026. I want you to burn this date into your memory. Write it down. Because years from now, when the dust has finally settled and the history books of this decade are written, economic historians will point to this exact week. They will point to this very moment as the irreversible tipping point. This is the week the grand, glittering illusion of the modern financial system finally began to fracture in a way that could no longer be hidden from the public. Right now, as we speak, beneath the surface of the mainstream media headlines, beneath the deafening noise of political theater, and beneath the endless, pointless debates about temporary market dips, a monumental tectonic shift is occurring in the global financial system. It is a shift so massive in scale, yet so meticulously quiet in its execution, that 99% of the global population has absolutely no idea it is happening. They are walking blindly through their daily lives. They are paying 20, 30, 40% more for basic groceries. They are watching the life savings they bled for by less and less each passing month. They are feeling the suffocating, crushing grip of interest rates on their mortgages and credit cards, and they are tragically blaming it on bad luck or corporate greed or the political party they happen to despise. But I am here to tell you, it is not bad luck. It is a mathematical certainty. It is a brilliantly designed, flawlessly orchestrated wealth transfer, and the largest asset managers in the world, the apex predators of global finance, institutions like BlackRock, are right now executing the final, ruthless stages of a master plan to secure the ultimate, universally recognized hard asset, physical gold. I want you to stop whatever you are doing and listen to this very carefully, because understanding this mechanism is the only way you will protect your family from what is coming. To comprehend the sheer magnitude of what is happening this week, you have to truly understand the toxic financial environment we are surviving in right now in May 2026. The world is balancing on the edge of a razor. We are seeing gold prices hovering in the stratosphere, pushing aggressively above $4,500 an ounce, even briefly touching $4,700. Just a few short years ago, traditional Wall Street economists laughed in our faces when we suggested gold would ever break $3,000. They called it a barbarous relic. They called it a pet rock. Now, $4,500 is the new unbreakable floor. He leans forward, his voice dropping an octave. But here is the contradiction. Here is the grand illusion, the sleight of hand that is entirely confusing everyday, hard-working retail investors. Over the last month, we have seen massive, terrifying headlines across every major financial network about ETF outflows. In March and April, US-listed physically backed gold ETFs saw record monthly outflows. The financial media talking heads on CNBC and Bloomberg are screaming from the rooftops, telling you, investors are dumping gold, the ETFs are bleeding out, the bull run is officially over, go back to buying tech stocks. This is a lie. It is a deliberate, calculated deception designed to keep you blind. What those well-paid anchors will never explain to you is the fundamental, structural difference between paper gold and physical gold. An exchange-traded fund, an ETF like the GLD, is a paper derivative. It is a promise. It is an IOU typed out on a digital ledger. When the global financial system is calm and stable, an IOU feels perfectly safe. But when the geopolitical order begins to aggressively fracture, when the Strait of Hormuz is functionally blockaded by conflict, when sovereign nations are threatening each other with devastating cyber warfare, when central banks are utterly trapped by sticky, unyielding 4.5% inflation and cannot cut interest rates without immediately triggering Weimar-style hyperinflation, an IOU becomes a lethal liability. The smart money knows this. BlackRock knows this. The central banks of the world know this better than anyone. What we are witnessing right now is not a dumping of gold. It is a conversion. The ultra-wealthy, the sovereign wealth funds, the billionaires, and the mega institutions are cashing in their paper chips and aggressively demanding physical delivery. They are draining the exchanges dry. Let us pull back the curtain on BlackRock and the institutional giants. These entities manage trillions upon trillions of dollars. They possess a bird's-eye view of the global macroeconomy, powered by supercomputers and proprietary geopolitical risk indicators that flash warnings long before governments even issue press releases. Right now, their dashboards are flashing a blinding, urgent red, at levels of systemic risk we haven't seen since the darkest days of the 2020 pandemic lockdowns, or perhaps even the 2008 Lehman Brothers collapse. In recent weeks, an explosive, heavily suppressed trend has accelerated to a breakneck pace. We are seeing a historic, unprecedented drain on exchange inventories. We are talking about up to 40% of the physical, deliverable supply that underpins the entire paper market being spoken for, transferred out, and locked away in private, unencumbered vaults. Replacing the bars with stacks of paper contracts, before fading back to John Agg. Why is the number 40% so terrifying? Because that is the exact critical mass at which a fractional reserve system begins to experience a terminal panic attack. You see, the precious metals market operates almost exactly like a traditional, corrupt fiat banking system. For every one single physical ounce of gold actually sitting in a COMEX vault in New York, there are dozens, sometimes hundreds of paper claims, derivatives, and contracts betting on that exact same single ounce. It is a colossal game of musical chairs played with the wealth of the world. As long as the music is playing, as long as speculators are perfectly happy trading paper contracts back and forth for fiat dollars, and nobody actually asks to hold the physical metal in their hands, the system works beautifully for the elite. It successfully suppresses the true price of the metal. It creates infinite liquidity out of thin air. But my friends, the music is stopping. This week, we are seeing first notice day chaos, not just in the silver markets, where thousands of contracts are suddenly standing for physical delivery, but across the entire precious metals complex. Massive institutions are looking out at the geopolitical landscape. They see the rapid, coordinated de-dollarization being spearheaded by the BRICS nations. They see the relentless, insatiable accumulation of gold by the central banks of China, Russia, Poland, India, and Kazakhstan. And they are waking up to the terrifying realization that counterparty risk is no longer just a theory. It is the single greatest threat to their financial survival. When an entity like BlackRock or their ultra-high net worth institutional clients makes a move to acquire physical assets, they don't simply log on to a retail brokerage app and click buy on an ETF. They coordinate massive logistical withdrawals of physical bars. They demand the massive 400-ounce good delivery bars out of the LBMA in London. They pull them directly from the COMEX vaults, and they load them onto heavily armed private cargo planes, flying them quietly in the dead of night to private, non-bank vaults deep in the mountains of Switzerland or the high-security free ports of Singapore and Dubai. They are aggressively draining the physical float, and by the time the average, hard-working retail investor realizes that the paper ETF they hold in their retirement account is backed by absolutely nothing but a highly leveraged, empty promise, it will be far too late. The physical gold will be entirely gone. The greatest, most proven wealth insurance in human history is being systematically accumulated by the very same institutions that go on television every day and tell the middle class to keep their money in a traditional, vulnerable stock and bond portfolio. It is financial hypocrisy of the highest possible order. It is a silent, ruthless confiscation of the world's ultimate safety net. Now we must ask the most critical question of all. Why is this happening now? Why this specific week in May 2026? It is because we have firmly entered the mathematical endgame of the global debt supercycle. For 40 long years, the entire global economy was artificially built on the seductive illusion of cheap, unlimited credit. 0% interest rates allowed corrupt governments to borrow infinitely to fund endless foreign wars and domestic welfare programs. It allowed megacorporations to borrow billions to buy back their own stock, artificially inflating share prices to trigger massive executive bonuses. And it allowed everyday consumers to live vastly beyond their means, masking the death of the middle class with credit card debt. But the unavoidable cancer of inflation broke that cycle permanently. Today, the Federal Reserve and central banks globally are trapped in a claustrophobic box of their own making. We have the Fed funds rate sitting elevated, punishingly high, around 3.75% or 4%. Yet real inflation, the inflation you actually feel when you pay for life, remains stubbornly, brutally stuck at 4.5% or higher. The politicians and media pundits will look into the camera and tell you the economy is robust and resilient. But I ask you to look around your own neighborhood. Look at your own life, your own bank account. His expression deeply empathetic, his voice softening but remaining intensely firm. This deeply toxic combination, artificially elevated interest rates and persistent, sticky inflation, is the precise engineered mechanism of the silent wealth transfer. I need to explain exactly how this insidious process works, because this is, without a doubt, the most vital, life-saving concept you will ever learn on this channel or anywhere else. When true inflation runs at 4.5% or 5%, the actual purchasing power of your money is bleeding out every single second of every single day. If you have $100,000 sitting in a savings account, you are literally losing thousands of dollars of real-world purchasing power every year just by doing nothing. To theoretically combat this, the central banks raise interest rates. They look the panicked public in the eye and proudly declare, "We are raising rates to fight inflation for you. We are the heroes." But the interest rates they offer you in your standard retail bank savings account are always, by deliberate, calculated design, lower than the real, lived rate of inflation. You are always losing ground. Furthermore, these elevated interest rates absolutely decimate the working and middle classes. Mortgage rates skyrocket to levels that make basic home ownership nothing more than a pipe dream for an entire generation of young people. Credit card interest compounds so violently it becomes mathematically unpayable. Small, family-owned businesses cannot afford the capital to expand, hire, or even maintain their daily basic operations. They are choked out of existence. And who, you must ask yourself, benefits from this exact scenario? The massive institutions, the megabanks, the apex predators. While the middle class is being slowly suffocated by the rising, unbearable cost of debt, elite institutions with massive liquid cash piles are earning billions of dollars in absolutely risk-free yield from government treasury bonds. They take that massive yield, that pure profit generated entirely by the sweat, labor, and taxation of the dying middle class, and what do they do with it? Do they invest it back into the real Main Street economy? Do they build new factories? Do they hire American or European workers? No, they absolutely do not. They use those billions to buy physical gold. They use it to buy the agricultural farmland right under your feet. They use it to buy entire neighborhoods of single-family real estate that you can no longer afford because the mortgage rates they engineered are too high. They turn you from an owner into a perpetual renter on the land your grandparents built. This is the very definition of the silent wealth transfer. It does not happen overnight in a dramatic, Hollywood-style stock market crash where brokers are yelling on a trading floor. It is far more evil than that. It happens slowly, agonizingly, invisibly. It happens month by month, paycheck by paycheck, grocery bill by grocery bill. It is the insidious mathematical process by which the working class is systematically forced to liquidate their hard-earned assets just to survive, while the elite class uses the central bank's own interest rate policy to scoop up those exact same assets at a massive generational discount. They are deliberately squeezing the middle class dry. They are forcing you to drain your emergency savings just to buy protein for your family and keep the lights on in your home. And as you are forced to liquidate everything you have worked for, the institutions aggressively accumulate. You cannot fully grasp this financially engineered wealth transfer in a vacuum. You absolutely must look at the wider, terrifying global chessboard. This week, the news cycle is utterly dominated by the escalating nightmare in the Middle East. We are seeing unprecedented, historic tension. The Strait of Hormuz, the vital, beating, irreplaceable artery for global energy and oil, is functionally compromised. Diplomatic relations are entirely broken. Oil prices are violently volatile, threatening to send a massive, secondary shockwave of energy inflation ripping through the already fragile, debt-laden Western economies. The IMF itself is issuing quiet, terrified warnings behind closed doors that a prolonged geopolitical conflict could trigger a global economic collapse far worse, far deeper than the 2008 financial crisis. In this environment of absolute geopolitical fracturing, where the rules of the last 80 years are being torn up, trust is the very first casualty. Since the end of World War II, the US dollar has been the undisputed, unchallenged king of the hill. It was the absolute reserve currency of the world. If you were a foreign nation, you held US Treasury bonds in your central bank, and you considered it as safe as physical gold. But over the last few years, The aggressive weaponization of the dollar changed the global paradigm forever. When foreign sovereign reserves were frozen and confiscated with the mere stroke of a political pen, the rest of the world woke up in a cold, terrified sweat. The BRICS nations and their rapidly expanding, powerful web of global allies realized instantly that holding paper dollars is a fatal, unacceptable national security vulnerability. And so the greatest, most aggressive gold rush in modern human history was launched. Central banks are buying gold at a relentless pace we literally have not witnessed since the 1960s, right before the gold standard was ultimately abandoned. In the first quarter of 2026 alone, central banks aggressively acquired another massive tranche of physical gold, completely defying all Western mainstream expectations. China, despite facing its own severe domestic economic slowdowns, continues to hoard the metal relentlessly. They are importing gold by the ton, through Switzerland, through Hong Kong, physically draining the Western vaults and slowly, permanently, moving the wealth and power of the world east. This is exactly why BlackRock and the Western institutional giants are panicking behind closed corporate doors. They realize that the geopolitical center of gravity is shifting irrevocably. They realize that the great 80-year fiat currency experiment is rapidly reaching its mathematical, catastrophic conclusion. When a sovereign, nuclear-armed nation decides it absolutely no longer trusts your paper promises, they demand settlement in real, physical assets. They demand energy, they demand hard commodities, and above all else, they demand gold. The 40% drain of the COMEX and LBMA vaults we are discussing today is the Western financial system's desperate, last-ditch, panicked attempt to secure whatever physical reserves remain before the Eastern Bloc completely and totally corners the global market. It is a game of high-stakes geopolitical musical chairs. The music is skipping, the tempo is frantic, and the elite are making absolutely sure they have a solid seat when the system finally collapses. The dark, almost black screen. The spotlight on John A.G. intensifies slightly, drawing all focus to his face and his eyes. I want to pause here. I need to talk to you directly. Not as a financial narrator, not as a YouTuber reading a script, but simply as a human being who cares about the future of our society. When I sit in this studio and look at these charts, when I spend hours analyzing the ETF outflows, the massive central bank buying sprees, the widening interest rate spreads, and the terrifying macroeconomic data, I do not just see cold numbers on a digital screen. I see human lives. I see families. I see you. I see the father working 50, 60 hours a week, driving a 10-year-old car that needs repairs he can't afford, laying awake at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, wondering why he just can't seem to get ahead. He did everything right. He played by all their rules. He went to school, he got a job, he put his hard-earned money into his 401k just like they told him to. But every single time he goes to the supermarket, the bill is shockingly higher. Every time he opens his local property tax statement, the number has surged again. He is running as fast as he can on a financial treadmill that is constantly speeding up, and the incline is getting steeper and steeper every single day until his heart gives out. I see the elderly couple, living on a fixed, unyielding pension, literally turning down their thermostat in the dead, freezing cold of winter because the cost of basic energy has doubled in 3 years. They saved their entire lives. They trusted the banking system. They trusted the stability of the currency. They trusted their government to protect them. And now, that very same currency is ruthlessly betraying them in their final years. This reality breaks my heart, and honestly, it makes me incredibly, fiercely angry. Because while this innocent family is struggling to buy cheap protein for dinner, the high-frequency trading algorithms at firms like BlackRock are executing thousands of trades in mere milliseconds. They're extracting fractional, microscopic pennies from millions of daily transactions and funneling that unimaginable, unearned wealth straight into private, heavily guarded vaults. The system is not broken. I need you to hear me clearly on this point. The system is functioning exactly, flawlessly, as it was designed to function by the people who built it. It was fundamentally designed to enrich the creators and the initial distributors of the fiat currency at the direct, unavoidable expense of the everyday users of that currency. This deep, structural injustice is exactly why I started Aurex. This is why I practically beg you to share these videos with your loved ones, your friends, your family, because the mainstream media networks will never, ever, under any circumstances, tell you this truth. They are paid to keep you distracted, They will feed you endless, toxic debates about left versus right, red versus blue, conservative versus liberal. They desperately want you angry at your neighbor. They want you divided and fighting in the streets. Because they know, as long as you are fighting your fellow citizen over manufactured cultural issues, you are not looking up. You are not looking at the central banks. You are not looking at the mega asset managers who are quietly, methodically buying up the entire world from right underneath your feet. This silent wealth transfer relies entirely on your ignorance. It feeds on your compliance. So, what do? How do we survive this engineered collapse? How do we protect our families, our dignity, and our decades of hard work when the very foundation of the global economy is violently shifting beneath our feet? The answer is profoundly simple, though I will admit it is not easy. You have to do exactly what they do, not what they say. The massive institutions are telling you on Bloomberg to aggressively buy the dip in wildly overvalued, bloated tech stocks. They are sitting in their television studios telling you that gold is an outdated relic, a useless metal with no yield, and that holding cash is safe. But I implore you, look at their actions. Look at the physical data. BlackRock is aggressively cornering the physical commodity markets. The central banks of the world are accumulating physical gold at record, historic, panic-driven paces. If the absolute apex predators of the global financial system are frantically converting their paper illusions into hard, tangible physical assets, why on God's green earth are you holding 100% of your life's labor in a rapidly depreciating, mathematically doomed fiat currency? You must take the red pill. You must step entirely outside of their matrix. You must own real, tangible things. Now, I must state that I am not a registered financial advisor, and I cannot give you personalized, individual financial advice. But human history is the greatest, most brutal teacher we have, and her record is completely undefeated. In every single instance in recorded human history where a fiat currency system inevitably collapsed under the crushing weight of unpayable exponential sovereign debt, from the tragic hyperinflation of the Weimar Republic in Germany to the collapse of Zimbabwe to the modern tragedy of Venezuela, and dozens of mighty empires before them all the way back to Rome, the absolute only people who survived with their wealth, their freedom, and their dignity intact were those who held physical assets: gold, silver, productive arable land, tangible, irreplaceable skills. Notice very carefully that I explicitly said physical gold and silver. I did not say paper derivatives. If you hold a gold ETF in your brokerage account, you hold massive counterparty risk. If the financial system freezes, if the COMEX is forced to declare force majeure because they mathematically cannot meet the avalanche of physical delivery demands, and trust me, when 40% of the vault is already drained, force majeure moves rapidly from a fringe conspiracy theory to a highly probable mathematical certainty. Your paper contract will be forcefully settled in depreciated fiat currency. You will not get your metal. You will be handed a digital check for dollars that buy half as much as they did yesterday, and you will be locked out of the true wealth transfer. The rule of this new era is absolute and unforgiving. If you do not hold it in your own hand, you do not own it. You desperately need to have physical metal in your own personal possession. You need to become your own central bank, completely independent of the corrupt system. Even if it is just a few small ounces of silver purchased every month with whatever you can save. I want you to understand that every single ounce of silver, every single gram of gold you take out of the system and into your own hands is a profound, powerful act of peaceful rebellion against the financial system that wants you perpetually trapped in debt. It is a physical, undeniable declaration of your absolute financial independence. As we move deeper and deeper into the second half of this pivotal year of 2026, the market volatility is going to increase exponentially. The daily news headlines are going to get significantly scarier. The financial media will actively try to shake you out of your safe positions through fear and intimidation. When you wake up and see the paper price of gold artificially drop by $100 or $200 in a single terrifying trading day, you must understand exactly what that is. That is nothing but paper market manipulation executed by the megabanks. It is entirely designed to trigger automated stop losses and force terrified retail investors to sell their positions in a blind panic. The big banks aggressively smash the paper price down, trigger a massive cascade of forced selling, and then they quietly step into the physical market to buy up the actual metal at a massive engineered discount. It is a ruthless psychological game played against weak hands and uneducated minds. Do not fall for it. Refuse to play their game. Zoom out and look at the undeniable macro picture. The United States national debt is compounding at a terrifying rate that is mathematically, physically impossible to ever repay through normal taxation. The interest expense just to service that massive debt is now one of the absolute largest line items in the entire federal government budget, surpassing national defense. The only way out for the government, the absolute, undeniable only way out, is to turn on the printing presses and print trillions upon trillions of new currency units to aggressively monetize the debt. When they inevitably do that, the remaining psychological illusion of the dollar will shatter completely and globally. The great psychological dam will finally break. And when that happens, the upward repricing of physical gold and physical silver will not be slow, and it will not be linear. It will not slowly go up 5% a year. It will be violent. It will be exponential. It will be a massive, overnight, shocking readjustment to mathematical reality. Those individuals who have taken the time to educate themselves, those who have positioned themselves beforehand outside of the paper system, will not merely protect their wealth. They will experience the greatest generational transfer of wealth in recorded human history, moving directly in their favor. Those who blindly trusted the system, those who comfortably held their entire life's wealth in paper promises and digital digits on a screen, will be tragically, completely wiped out. I want you to be on the right side of this monumental shift in history. I want your children and your children's children to look back at the difficult, brave decisions you made right now in May 2026 and say with absolute pride, "My family saw the collapse coming, and they protected us when no one else would." We are living through the pages of history right now. The aggressive, silent draining of the physical gold vaults by BlackRock and the global institutional elite is the ultimate canary in the coal mine. It is the final, deafening warning bell ringing in the dark night of our economy. The elevated interest rates will ruthlessly continue to squeeze the life out of the middle class. The silent, insidious wealth transfer will continue entirely unabated until the global fiat system ultimately and inevitably resets. But I remind you, you are not powerless in this fight. You have the profound ability to educate yourself. You have the God-given ability to take decisive, immediate action. You have the ability to trade their dying, corrupt fiat currency for the immortal, undeniable money of kings. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here with me today. It takes immense, uncommon courage to look directly at the terrifying truth when everyone else in society is choosing to look away in comfortable denial. It takes profound courage to step away from the blind, compliant herd. If the words in this video resonated with your soul, if the data opened your eyes to the reality of the matrix we are living in, please, I ask you to hit the like button right now. Leave a detailed comment down below. I read as many as I possibly can. Let me know exactly where you are watching from in the world, and tell me what you are seeing with your own eyes in your local economy. Are you feeling the crushing weight of inflation at your local grocery store? Are you seeing the silent wealth transfer destroying small businesses in your own town? Let us use this platform to build a powerful, unbreakable community of awake, prepared, and fiercely resilient individuals. Thank you for your valuable time. Thank you for your continued trust in Aurex. Protect yourselves, protect your families with everything you have, and always remember, keep stacking your physical ounces, keep preparing for what is mathematically inevitable, and absolutely never surrender your financial sovereignty to a corrupt system that fundamentally does not care if you survive. I will see all of you in the very next critical update. God bless you all, and stay strong.